Scarborough Shoal is a flashpoint in the South China Sea, where international law clashes with national ambition. It's a small feature with outsized significance, symbolizing the struggle for control, resources, and influence in Asia. For Filipino fishermen, it's a lifeline. For Beijing, Manila, and Washington, it's a strategic chess piece. The core conflict, the Philippines claims the shoal under international law, while China asserts historical rights rejected by the UN. This is where maps, laws, and naval power collide. Control of Scarborough Shoal would let China project military power across the South China Sea, threatening Philippine sovereignty and regional stability. For the US, a treaty ally of the Philippines, the shoal is about defending freedom of navigation and the global economy. If one nation dominates these waters, it could disrupt global trade. The standoff is more than a local dispute, it's a test of alliances and international norms. Scarborough Shoal is a microcosm of US-China rivalry. The outcome here could reshape the balance of power in Asia. The world is watching and the stakes are high. The future of the international order may be decided in these contested waters. Scarborough Shoal's history is as contested as its waters. The Philippines cites Spanish-era maps and generations of fishermen to claim the shoal as part of its territory. China points to ancient texts and maps arguing for indisputable sovereignty dating back to the Yuan dynasty. This clash of narratives fuels the modern dispute. In 2012, a standoff erupted when the Philippine Navy tried to arrest Chinese fishermen. China responded with maritime patrols, seizing control. Since then, Chinese ships have blocked Filipino fishermen from the lagoon. The Philippines responded by taking China to international court. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled for the Philippines, invalidating China's 9-dash line and affirming traditional fishing rights. China rejected the ruling, maintaining its presence at the shoal. The legal victory didn't change the reality on the water. Scarborough Shoal remains a symbol of unresolved sovereignty and the limits of international law. The dispute is now a test of power, persistence, and the willingness of nations to defend their claims. The world's attention is fixed on what happens next. The struggle for Scarborough Shoal is far from over. China's tactics at Scarborough Shoal are a masterclass in grey zone warfare, aggressive, but just short of open conflict. Instead of direct military action, China uses layers of ships. Coast Guard vessels block access, maritime militia swarm the area, and the Navy lurks nearby. This cabbage strategy slowly tightens control without firing a shot. Water cannons, not bullets, are used to drive away Philippine vessels, damaging boats and risking injury but avoiding outright war. These ambiguous tactics make it hard for the Philippines and the US to respond without escalating. Filipino fishermen and Coast Guard crews face constant danger and intimidation. China's goal make it so costly and risky for the Philippines to assert its rights that it simply gives up. The strategy is slow, methodical, and relentless. China leverages its numerical superiority and high tolerance for risk to change the status quo. It's about winning without fighting. Sun Tzu's wisdom updated for the South China Sea. The result is a tense, grinding standoff. Every day the risk of miscalculation grows. The world is left wondering, how far will China go and who will blink first? The answer could reshape the region. The Philippines has countered China's pressure with a bold new strategy: transparency. Under President Marcos Jr., Manila now publicizes every Chinese incursion, embedding journalists on patrols and sharing footage worldwide. This name and shame approach has shifted global opinion, exposing China's actions and rallying international support. Transparency is now Manila's most potent weapon. The Philippines is also modernizing its Navy and Coast Guard, building a credible deterrent with help from allies like the US, Japan, and Australia. Joint military exercises and new defense agreements have revitalized old alliances. Manila is forging closer ties with regional and Western powers, making the dispute an international issue. The message Scarborough Shoal isn't just a Philippine concern, it's a test for the entire rules-based order. By shining a light on grey zone tactics and strengthening its defenses, the Philippines is raising the cost of aggression. The world is watching, and Beijing is feeling the pressure. The fight for Scarborough Shoal is now fought as much in the court of public opinion as on the water. The stakes have never been higher. The Philippines is determined not to back down. The United States has reasserted its role as a security guarantor in the South China Sea. While neutral on territorial claims, Washington insists disputes be settled peacefully and under international law. The US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty now explicitly covers attacks on Philippine forces in the South China Sea. This clarification is a direct warning to Beijing. US warships regularly conduct freedom of navigation operations, challenging China's claims. Joint patrols and large-scale exercises with the Philippine military have increased, signaling a renewed commitment. The Balikatan exercises now include live fire drills and scenarios defending Philippine territory. The American presence is no longer just symbolic. It's a tangible deterrent. China faces a united front, the Philippines backed by US military power. The Scarborough Shoal standoff is a central test of US credibility in Asia. The stakes are global: freedom of navigation, regional stability, and the balance of power. The US pivot to Asia is real, and the world is watching. The message is clear. America stands with its allies. The next move is China's. Scarborough Shoal standoff reverberates across the Indo-Pacific. Southeast Asian nations with their own disputes, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, watch Manila's assertiveness closely. Success here could inspire a more unified regional response to China. But ASEAN remains divided. Some members depend on China economically, others push for a tougher stance. This split weakens the bloc's ability to mediate. China exploits these divisions, preferring bilateral talks over facing a united ASEAN. Meanwhile, new security groupings are emerging. The Quad, US, Japan, Australia, India, conducts joint exercises, while AUKUS aims to boost Australia's naval power. The region is becoming more polarized and militarized. Countries are being forced to choose sides in the US-China rivalry. The era of hedging is ending. Allegiances are being clarified. Scarborough Shoal is a catalyst, pushing nations to prepare for a more contested future. The stakes are rising for everyone. Scarborough Shoal is more than a sovereignty dispute, it's an economic lifeline. For Filipino fishermen, it's a source of survival, now largely cut off by Chinese patrols. The blockade has devastated local communities. The seabed may hold oil and gas, resources both Manila and Beijing covet for energy security. The South China Sea is a global trade artery. 1/3 of world shipping passes through, worth trillions. Any conflict here would disrupt supply chains and spike global prices. That's why even distant nations send ships to assert freedom of navigation. China's actions are about leverage. Controlling key features could let it influence global commerce. The fear Beijing could use this power to pressure neighbors or the world. The fight for Scarborough Shoal is a fight for economic security. The stakes are global and the risks are immense. Control here means control over the region's and the world's future. The risk of escalation at Scarborough Shoal is real and growing. A collision or accident between Chinese and Philippine vessels could trigger a crisis. Would the US-Philippines Defense Treaty be invoked? The answer could spark a wider conflict. China building an outpost on the shoal is a red line for both Manila and Washington. Any attempt at land reclamation could prompt a naval blockade and direct military standoff. The Philippines might try to re-establish a presence, risking confrontation. Even a single miscalculation, a warning shot, a ramming, could spiral into open conflict. Nationalism and political pressure would make de-escalation difficult. The nightmare, a limited clash that draws in the US and China, both nuclear powers. While worst case, this scenario is disturbingly plausible. The world is watching for any spark that could ignite a regional war. The margin for error is razor thin. The stakes could not be higher. Despite the dangers, a peaceful resolution at Scarborough Shoal is still possible. Diplomacy remains the best hope, though progress is slow. A binding code of conduct for the South China Sea is needed, but talks have stalled for years. A practical step could be a demilitarized zone or a shared fisheries agreement requiring real compromise. International law, especially the 2016 tribunal ruling, remains a key tool for Manila and its allies. By championing the ruling, they can increase diplomatic pressure on China. Legitimacy matters. The more the world accepts the ruling, the harder it is for Beijing to ignore. The future will be shaped by power, diplomacy, and national will. The Philippines has shown resolve, the US has renewed its commitment, China is unlikely to back down. The standoff will likely continue, a tense contest of nerves and strategy. The challenge is to manage competition without letting it erupt into war. Navigating these waters will require skill, patience, and luck. The world holds its breath as the next chapter unfolds.